Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Glen Legus with me here today. Did I say that properly?
Yep. You said it exactly right, and I really don't care. I'll answer to just about anything.
All right. Thanks, Glen. So Glen is a security consultant, has taught security awareness and defense tactics for over 40 years. He has 27 years with the US Marshal Service. Thank you very much. He entered the realm of information security as the system administrator for the US Marshal Service in the District of Minnesota, go Minnesota, and continued to pioneer numerous security initiatives, playing pivotal roles in multiple positions at multiple levels, including the national scale. He is the founding chair of the Active Shooter Working Group for the Interagency Security Committee. He is author of 3 books and serves on multiple boards. Welcome to the show, Glen.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. You've done a lot. I skipped over a lot there too. Let's back up and talk about how you got into that industry in the first place.
Into information security, the Marshal Service.
Which happened first?
The Marshal Service.
Okay,
I was in sales and business for about 10 years and wasn't really enjoying myself. So I started asking everybody I knew, what do you do? Why did you get into it? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
Awesome.
And based on what I was getting, I knew a bunch of guys that I worked out with that were cops, and it seemed like they're enjoying their jobs. Maybe I would. So I went down to the community college and said, hey, because there's a requirement to be a law enforcement officer in Minnesota to have a 2-year degree and pass a standards board. And I went in and talked to the guy who ran the program, and I said, what would it take for me to get in there? Because I had a 4-year business degree. And he said, well, you'd only have to take the core law enforcement classes because you got everything else. But why are you looking at local? And I said, well, because that's what my buddies are doing.
Right.
And he said, well, with your degree and your resume and your transcript, you could just start applying to the feds tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So I went home and looked in the blue pages and started calling all the federal agencies and saying, what do you got? And I started applying with a bunch of them, and eventually, about 2 years later, the Marshal Service picked me up, and it was a great ride. I had a lot of fun over the years, and hopefully I contributed.
Well, sure you did. It sounds like you contributed a lot based off of your CV and all sorts of programs and accolades that you were a part of. And it seems like you initiated a lot of stuff. New programs as things evolved, which I'm sure they were lucky to have you there for.
It was fun breaking new ground. It's as I like to say, I'm constantly doing something where I'm feeling my way in the dark.
Is there an element of danger to the security aspects, or is a lot of that preemptive planning?
At this point in my life, it's mostly planning and policy and risk assessments and security surveys. But through my career with the Marshal Service, I did a lot of things. I had a lot of fun. I was working security details, chasing bad guys, hauling bandits around, sitting with them in court, looking for the guys that were on the run. I had a good time.
Was it kind of are some of the movies realistic in that regard?
It was funny. I was sitting with my son when he was about I think he was probably about 5 or 6, and we're watching the US Marshals, and he's sitting on the floor playing, and he looks up at me and he says, Dad, is that what your job's like? And I said, oh yeah, every day. And he goes, no, you don't tell somebody you're going to take their car and go chase somebody. You don't do that. No way. It's like, so here's a 5-year-old kid who's, not believing the believability of the movies, but I get asked by friends all the time, yeah, is it just like that? Yeah, sure, it is. Mm-hmm. had my time, running through the woods with a helicopter overhead, chasing after somebody that a dog was tracking. But
Okay.
that was a pretty rare experience for me. Now I got some buddies that, do that all the time.
Right.
But, my career was very varied. I got into the information security right away. I started in 90, and a supervisor and a senior deputy are working on a laptop, and they're kind of scratching their heads, and I leaned back and I asked a couple questions. Next thing I know, I'm in the chief's office and says, evidently you know more about these things than any of us here do. So you're now in charge of
You're promoted.
systems administration and our computer security. I'm like, okay, great. So I started learning.
Okay. Okay. Did you get a lot of government training then at that point? Did they send you off to become a super expert?
No. In fact, 5 years later, there was a systems administrator training class, and I asked to go to it, and he said, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna send somebody else," because that was in '95 after Oklahoma, and I'd done a detail at headquarters working on the vulnerability assessment for federal facilities, and got a director's award and an invitation to go there. And I come back, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to give you that training because I'm just going to lose you anyway. I need to send somebody that's going to stay around." And let's see, 18 years later, I left the office and went to headquarters. So in the meantime, all the guys that he said were going to stay, I outlasted all of them. A couple of them left the agency and went somewhere else. A couple of guys retired early because the job got untenable under some new management.
Okay.
But I stuck it out because I really was enjoying myself and liked where I was.
Okay. So after like the Oklahoma City bombing, for example, you got into more vulnerability assessment work. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I was yes, I mean, I was working threats and doing threat investigations, fairly early in my career. Because again, I said, "Hey, what do you need?" I didn't wait for assignments to come to me. I poked around and said, "Hey, what can I help you with?" And so the Marshal Service is responsible for the security of all the federal courts. So when somebody was unhappy with the judge and expressed it, we'd check into whether or not we thought they were actually going to do something, whether they had the capability, and we called those threat investigations. And some people
I've had a
went
friend
to jail.
who's experienced that, right? They had
Sure.
Yeah, her husband was a judge, and every now and then their marshals would show up at the property to for a week or two.
Yep.
Scary stuff. Appreciate the service you guys
thank
do.
you. It can be scary, but it was also a lot of fun. I mean, and a lot of interesting people. I mean, I met a lot of very interesting people at all different levels of government.
Okay, what was the most rewarding? Can you think of a top couple that you enjoyed the most, or something you felt had the most impact?
One of the vulnerability assessment was a big deal at the time, but being the founding chair of the active shooter working group for the Interagency Security Committee was very satisfying and very cool, because that was active shooters were getting more and more attention in 2013. They had been for some while. We'd been doing training for that for since the early 2000s in the district, in case we had a shooter in the courthouse. But there was no national policy for the executive branch, and so the ISC formed a working group, and one of my bosses at the time caught wind of it and said, "Hey, you should check into that," because I was in charge of the research and evaluation branch for judicial security, and I was the first chief for that unit. And so my job was to do new things and explore new areas to expand the way we were protecting the judiciary. So I reached out to the ISC and I said, hey, I understand you're forming this group. And the guy said, yeah, I am. Would you like to be the chair? And I said, sure, I can help.
All right.
And, they started out with 8 members, none of which were primarily mainstream law enforcement. So I said, hey, we need more people. And I ended up getting, another 20 folks into the working group, but everybody from from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center down in Georgia, we had a guy helping out. We had the FBI, the ATF, all sorts of, and we got some counties involved. In fact, we got a Hennepin County in Minnesota to help out. And Los Angeles. So we had a pretty wide group looking at policy and planning for preparing for an active shooter. So that's what we were doing. And one of the early questions was, are we going to do a policy or are we going to do a best practices planning guide? And I said, well, I think we need both and neither one should wait. And they said, well, we've never done that before. So under my pushing, we published the first ever combined policy and planning guide for a policy matter for the federal government. And so we've got, the policy is very short. It's like a page and a half. Right? We
Oh, wow, I didn't expect that.
No, keep it simple, keep it straightforward. These are the things you need to do. And then we got about 150 pages. I forget how many total are in there of this is how you accomplish what we said you need to do. But that part's a planning guide. All you got to do is do the major parts. You got to do training. You got to do planning. You got to have individual training for your people. What are they going to do when something bad happens? And right. So we put that together, and a year or so later we published that, and then it took us 6 months to figure out what shouldn't really be out for the public, and we went back and published the guide for public consumption, and anybody can download it.
Okay, excellent. What sort of traits or skills were you looking for when you put together that sort of team?
Looking for people that could think what's important. We were looking for critical thinkers is the big thing, and people that had policy experience, but also people that had practical on the street. Right. These are the things you might not think of experiences.
So it's people from the field and policymakers together.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you needed, was both insights.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I get it. I want to talk about how you've been teaching security awareness and defensive tactics and all that, cyber and physical tactics. But first, I feel obliged to ask if I haven't seen the details or anything still about the shooter on President Trump. For our listeners, this is July 2024. Have you been able to review any of that? Do you have any insight or thoughts on it's again for listeners? It's a little bit of an issue because, from my understanding, the shooter was observed by multiple people over time, and it took forever for forever, and it took a surprising amount of time, and then the shooter even fired shots before anything was done. I wasn't sure what the real story was.
Well, and that still is yet to come out. We don't know the details. And I wrote something on LinkedIn just the other day about, so we got a lot of facts coming out that turn out to be not facts. And then things change, and timing and distance. And why didn't they shoot this guy on the roof when they saw him up there with a gun? Well, they didn't see him up there with a gun. And he wasn't, in full view because he was on a what you saw in the video shows a guy laying on what looks like kind of a flat roof, and how come somebody didn't do something about this guy before? Well, that roof was on an incline, and he was peeking over the top peak. Now is that story gonna change again? So it's really hard to pass judgment on
Okay.
what they should have done, what they should have done different. It was like the same thing, with what happened in Uvalde. That was a horrible situation, but everybody who was, making statements in the beginning, the story changed so much over the next year.
Wow.
And so it's really, the TV stations and news people, they want someone to come out with a concrete analysis, and
Sure.
there's a lot more to know before you can really do that. So folks aren't doing that a justice, I think.
Okay. Yeah, good. That's a very wise response. Thank you. So let's talk about your consulting.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you do training as well as consulting. Is that separate?
It's sort of kind of all wrapped up together.
Okay.
A little bit depends. I mean, I've been, in terms of physical training, I've been involved in the martial arts for a long, long time, and, been teaching for a long, long time. So, that's a little bit different than security awareness training, which is a little bit different than, a security response type of training. So, I would do training on, helping an organization raise their awareness and develop planning for an active shooter attack, as well as I'm doing risk assessments for for an organization's information security needs. Are they do they have technical controls in place that will help stop an intruder? Do they have technical controls in place that will help detect one if one does get in? And then what do we do about remediation, and what are your policies, and are you addressing all these issues that are out there? And then I've got to talk about elder fraud, or some of these what they call phishing attacks, where you get an email and they're asking you to click a button and give them information, or give them information, and the scams where people are developing a relationship and then asking for money, and people, my own father got taken. As best I can figure, it's got to be close to about $100,000 before I was able to plug that, because he gets to do what he wants with his own money, right?
Right.
Everybody's saying, why don't you stop that? And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Wrap him up and put him in the trunk of my car? That's not legal. So, things like that.
There's some scary stuff out there, for all sorts of reasons. Most of it's financially oriented, but the fact that with like 3 or 4 words of my voice recorded, as a sampling, AI can now basically mimic it and send a voicemail to my daughter saying, "Hey, it's Dad, I'm in trouble. My card isn't working. Please tell me all your credit card info so I can pay for the tow truck," or something like that.
Those attacks are getting more and more sophisticated all the time. I've got a buddy who says, if my wife calls me, I'll say, "Just a minute, hang up," and he calls her back to make sure that it's her.
Wow. And not his girlfriend?
Yeah, or the bad guys trying to empty his bank account.
Yep.
I didn't read the actual details, but there's a story, so I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, but of a couple months ago, there was a business meeting. Some guy in Hong Kong was meeting with some of the senior managers in his company, and the VP of finance told him to wire some money, and he did. And then later it turned out that the guy that wired the money was the only real person in the meeting.
Holy cow.
Then, they took him.
Wow.
It's, and the attacks are getting more and more sophisticated. I mean, you used to be able to look for misspelled words, common. You used to be able to with bad grammar, common. The grammar's getting better. The spelling's getting better. What is the logo right? Was the name slightly misspelled? It's getting better and better and sharper all the time. Where, I tell my father-in-law, you get an email from your bank, don't click on anything in that email.
Right.
If you want to reach out to them, log on through the site that or call the number on your credit card, but don't even respond to that email, much less click on anything.
Right.
Another one, it's kind of a meme, but so it's a little bit of a joke, but a guy talking about, I'm really proud of this scam email I sent out. And what I'm really particularly proud of is I put the malware into the press here to report as suspicious button.
Yeah, swell.
And the same thing with, unsubscribe. I don't unsubscribe from anything because you don't know where that's going to take you.
Just delete it, send it to your junk filter folder.
Yep.
All right, good tips. Thank you. So, I guess what are you most excited for moving forward in that industry? And are you focusing more on the cyber stuff?
Yeah, because that's, my my days of, physical security response are winding down, if not in the rearview mirror. So, this is a growing area of, it's been huge for a while, and there just isn't enough help out there, and, people do need it. And cyber information security, it's not really, it is a technical issue, but it's more a people issue. And it's it's not just an IT thing. It's a business issue. It's a personal safety and security issue. When those hospitals go down because somebody locked up their system, okay, can we not perform surgery today?
What happened last week?
Yep, there's coming real physical danger issues in these kind of things. Somebody hacks your car and locks up the steering wheel. There are crazy things that can happen in this world. So yeah, I pivoted to that and trying to help clients with that. I still have one client where I help them craft their proposal because they're going to submit a contract proposal to the government, to supply, guard service. And, I have a strong background in that. So when they're due to, make a submission, they call me up and say, hey, would you look this over and tweak it? And, so I still do that. But I'm looking more and more to focus on what are the information security needs of clients and organizations. And I'm really having a fun time teaching the class. It's a 60-hour class, so it's a no joke, real certification. Right. And it's to teach folks. It's an introductory to the information security field, and then that's the first half of the class. And then the second half of the class is, okay, how do you take that knowledge and apply that to helping somebody as a consultant? They call it being a virtual CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. And so this is to be a certified vCISO, which basically means, lots and lots of organizations need a Chief Information Security Officer, but that's a very heavy qualification, high buck, expensive position to have.
Right.
So what they do is they hire a consultant to do it part-time for them. And you can do a risk assessment, figure out, what are your vulnerabilities, where are your greatest risks, and then help them build a roadmap on how to address those vulnerabilities and get more secure and make progress, and then help them make those decisions and help them implement things. And that's fun, but I'm really enjoying teaching the class. And the class varies. We've got brand new people in the field that haven't done information security at all before, that don't like what they're doing, kind of like how I got into law enforcement. I'm going to do something different. What's it going to be? Some of those folks are in class up to we got some real serious experts that are taking the class because they, it's kind of a value add to put that certified in front of your title.
Right.
And to make sure that, and to learn and to keep learning themselves. And we have everybody in between. So there's just a wide ranging perspective and experience that's really fun to work with those folks.
Okay. Excellent. I noticed you're also, you've been treasurer back in St. Paul for a credit union. You're treasurer here in Arizona now. You've made the move here on a couple of groups.
Yeah.
You enjoying the Phoenix life?
I am. We're really having a good time here. We really like the weather. The summer can be a little bit hard, but it isn't any worse than 20 below back home.
Well, I always rationalize that as I ran from heated car to heated building for 6 months back here. Now I run from air conditioned car to air conditioned building.
Right. Well, and as a friend of my wife said, you don't have to shovel that hot stuff.
No, you don't. It's true. Okay. So in sort of wrapping up, I'd like to ask if there's a piece of advice you'd like to give to someone aiming to get into your industry.
Well, that's easy. Take the CVCISO course.
All right. And for people who want to know where that is or learn more about you or connect, where can they find the info on the course and yourself?
You go to securitystudio.com. That's all one word, and look for the training or this. Let me grab it here real quick. So securitystudio.com. Yeah, there right at the top, there's a button for the Academy, and then hit that and go to courses, and it will talk about the CVCISO courses that are available. And the next cohort for the CVCISO course starts October 8th.
Okay. This is July, like we said, 2024. This episode should be out probably in August, so that should work out. All right. And how about yourself? If they want to reach out to you and connect, where can they find you?
My email is g@2ts2.com.
And LinkedIn.
And I'm on LinkedIn. Yep, absolutely. Okay. And my books, you can find those on Amazon.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you sharing your journey and your insights into success and your unique security field. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.